Back at it again.
Yep.
And the best place to start this is what inspired this podcast all from the very beginning. And that was your boy, Ja Wick Morant.
That's not his real name.
That kid loves guns, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. Dude.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he cannot get enough of this obsession with guns.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, we have lots of church members with obsessions with guns.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it just all during church doing shooting things at everyone. Not that, but
imagine after your sermons, you just you hit like a really convicting passage and you just start.
The arrow's like, I'm just going for one shot. This guy's over here machine gunning everybody.
What is going on with him? Okay. All right. At the same time, and you can go back and forth with me on this. There's people that have been doing these finger gun celebrations, 3-point, like stuff like this all year long.
Is there?
Yes. Like guys are doing this all maybe the only difference is
they're not cocked. It's not loaded.
It's not loaded. Yeah. His guns are loaded. And everyone else's
He made sure everyone knows it's loaded.
Yeah. Theirs is obviously an empty clip.
Yeah.
you know. So
I think this is the nature of being above reproach. A very common command in the scripture to be above reproach. Elders must be above reproach, but this is one of those things where he's not above reproach because it's one thing if in an NBA game you hit a deep three or something and you do a shooting kind of randomly thing. It's like, you're shooting a ball, right? It's the same terminology. But when you've multiple times pulled out a real gun while driving randomly in Snapchat or whatever, he's like recording that you're pulling out a real gun at people, then you're gonna probably get fined. You're gonna draw the attention, and you can't simply say, well, they made a gun motion too after hitting whatever shot. You're like, yeah, man, but they don't have a habit at this point of pulling out a real weapon at people after the game when they're driving home.
The funny thing about it is that he got warned. So for those of our listeners that don't know the whole story, Ja Morant pulled out a gun last year twice, was warned and then suspended, and for pulling out a gun on live Instagram twice in the matter of months. Mm-hmm. Now he got warned for a dual finger celebration of the guns. Mm-hmm. And then literally the next game later, he does it again and now got fined $75,000. But you know what? He said in his heart, he said, you know what? I'm not going to do the finger guns anymore. I'm going to abide by the rules. And you know what I'm going to do?
Something more productive
in his mind. This man comes out with a hand grenade celebration.
No.
And I'm talking hand grenade.
No. Kink. Does he just want to pay a $100,000 fine? What in the world is he thinking?
Well, he's not aiming he's just throwing the grenade out there.
Just in the huge pile of fans who paid who knows how much money.
It's not a real grenade. Who is it hurting?
The only thing I feel for him is I know he did when he got warned recently, I believe it was at
he
Oracle,
was pointing, and he was
in San Francisco, because this might be okay at Memphis. I don't know. The Memphis might be cool with this stuff. I know the governor there might be a little more friendly to just fake blasting everybody, but I don't know. Yeah, a grenade. I'm warning you right now, Ja Morant. That's not going to go well for you.
Yeah,
but you're right. This was an inspiration of this podcast a long while ago and I haven't tracked what he's been saying recently.
Oh, I got a quote for you.
Okay, let's
hear it. You want to hear it? I was pretty much a villain for 2 years now. I don't care no more. Ja Morant.
Oh, the Joker. He thinks he's the Joker, dude.
He's
been watching way too much Batman.
He's the villain. Which is crazy is because, yes, $75,000 doesn't mean anything to him, but it still is worth something.
Yeah.
There's something that could have been done with that 75 grand.
You can afford that when you only have one baby mama like John Morant does. I think he's married with one kid, because we're going to talk later about Anthony Edwards. Or
a little foreshadowing.
Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it's just a foolish move. I mean, it's such an entitled posture of all the celebrations you can do. And, knowing how many young kids are watching you, and again, your past offenses of pulling out a real weapon, brandishing a real weapon at people. So again, if you never have brandished a gun at anybody, and every once in a while you do a nice shot motion or something, no one's really going to think about it. But I know when I'm dunking on people in volleyball, I'll do a nice arrow shot or something. But you can't brandish a real gun at people. That's not going to bode well. And then think. I'm like shocked he thought a grenade is a better alternative. I mean, what in the world?
What kind of people do you think he's surrounded with?
Yeah, man, he's enculturated. He's watching some. I mean, this is probably a product of social media, with just loving a culture of aggression, posturing, thinking that threatening others is a healthy habit, or and just, I don't know, either they're looking for that rush, or I mean, it's like, it's just a immaturity thing to.
Yeah, and I think that's why Proverbs is such a good book to be in on a regular basis, because I'm reminded of Proverbs 29:11. A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. And fools will just show you, constantly flaunt all the foolery that they're involved in. That this is who I am. This is what I want to be. If you talk back to me,
fools always want to brawl.
Right.
I think it's Proverbs 9, maybe 6 and 7. It says that, correct a fool and you'll get injured.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't even correct a fool without getting injured. Like, that's how badly they want to quarrel and brawl, is that you go to correct them. Like, this is a very clear, simple, straightforward correction. And they're willing to fight you over something that you're literally offering them something to help them. And they won't even take that without wanting to brawl. And it's just this posture of quarreling and fighting. And, interestingly, in a man who plays a competitive sport for a living, it's like, are you really not getting the competitive outlet out at all, that you need to spend your time off the court and even on the court like this? Like, there's just so many productive options to have a good celebration. And yes, that's pretty wild. But back to when we first started talking about this, before we started the podcast, one of the things that irked us was, so often these athletes, they're then trained, by NBA psychologists or whatever, to come on there and say, like, that's not the real me. And then they
just need to find help.
Yeah.
They just need that's not the real them.
Yep.
They just need to really do some work inside of themselves.
Yeah.
And
I it seems like he's actually embracing, like, no, this is the real me. He's got the Joker face on. Yeah, he's like, okay, well, guess what? All your psychology crap was trash. It's not true. That's funny that we've come full circle, because what led us to start talking about starting a podcast was just how all these ESPN reporters and whatnot were kind of praising him, that he came out with this statement that this isn't the real him. And it's like, dude, that's not what he needs. He needs to confess his sin, recognize, no, this is who he is. This is what, from the heart, the mouth speaks. Our actions stem from who we are. James 4 says it's our passions that lead us to quarrel. They're real passions in us that lead us to quarrel. And so he just needs to own, no, this is who I am. And I actually need to get to work on who I am, not just create this facade of that guy over there, that John Morant who does these things is a different guy. It's like, no, it was actually you. And here he is now embracing it. And yeah, it sounds like he's rejected the paradigm that those psychologists have offered to him. But unfortunately, he's just embracing the wrong side of the paradigm. So I agree that he should reject the paradigm that it's not a different person who's doing these things, but now he's just embracing that he's the villain instead of recognizing there is an objective glory to being a good hero.
Yeah, and being the villain to the wrong, because we talked about villains in our first episode with Trae Young antagonizing fans at Madison Square Garden. Like that's a villain role in the sense that he's killing his opponent in the way that he should. Not with finger guns.
So yeah, seriously, I mean, it's like what? Does this really feel good to you?
But like, but like the thing is, like they think they look so cool when they just, you know what I mean? How do I look? What do you think? Like that? Is that the angle? Like his long, lanky arms, just with the two. Like he just thinks. It's unfortunate to see such a great athlete and kids are looking up to him and they're just, the thing is that commentators now at this point, they're so fed up with it that they don't comment on it because they don't have any, they've lost all their cards. They've played all their cards of, hey, he's innocent. He just needs some help. He just does the work. Once someone is just taking on the role that like, I am this evil person, then like they just.
What do you do?
Yeah. They're just like, oh, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Like he just, let's move on.
We'll just keep finding him and maybe he'll get suspended if he keeps, blowing whatever arena he up. And it's gonna, it could wreck his career if he just keeps doubling down on that, which is such a sad tragedy to have a great athlete.
Well, the crazy thing about all this is that this isn't even the biggest of the scandals that we have on tap today.
Yeah, there's always good stuff out there.
Yeah, we've got Isaiah Bond, who was a former Texas wide receiver, NFL draft prospect, turned himself into Frisco, Texas police on an outstanding warrant related to sexual assault allegation. He was released after posting bail. Bond has publicly denied the accusation, stating it is patently false, and has expressed his intention to be cooperative fully with the investigation. This stuff has been going on for years and years and years. And we've seen men who have actually committed the crime and be justly convicted of it. We can't say that they all been punished as they should have been, but at least convicted, found guilty as they should have been. And then there's also been men who were years later come out that they weren't guilty. But why does it seem like these stories are always coming around? Like there's just, we can count it almost every single year. There's going to be some kind of domestic violence or sexual assault case. Man is accused by the woman and the man denies it until we get a conviction later on. And then it's finally confessed, true or not. Like, why do we keep seeing this?
Yeah, big existential question there. I think often the answer will boil down to some individual realities of what people have grown to idolize and value and how they believe they're to treat women or men. I think we're at a when there isn't justice, you said a lot of these guys, they might get a proper conviction, but then there isn't much of a penalty. When there isn't justice, you are tilling the ground for both a lot more crime to be committed, as well as, I think, a lot of more false accusations, because it's kind of the only hope you have is to just kind of keep stirring the pot that this is a real thing. And so you have these women who I think at times feel like they're at a loss because there isn't justice. And so it's like, well, at least I'm going to get at kind of the boogeyman of I'm just going to pick a guy and I'm just going to make accusations then So what you're saying is
one on the from the criminal's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
if you know that there's a severe punishment like castration,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be really careful about the situations you put yourself in, because one false accusation and your life is completely different.
Yeah, and I do think there would need to be at least 2 witnesses. So that can play out a few different ways. I mean, like a DNA test on something could be function as another witness. You'd have to still prove that there was force against someone's will in that kind of thing. You know, you need to look at text messages, see is there any kind of consensual nature to how they talk, or you know, was there a date rape drug involved? So there'd be a lot of investigation to make sure there's justice, that an innocent man does not get charged. And I do think there would need to be justice on the flip side as well when someone falsely accuses. You know, just generally speaking, whatever the crime would be or the penalty would be should fall on the person's head who was a false accuser, to keep people from thinking they can just falsely accuse and not much is really going to happen. But without justice at all, I mean, you're going to have increased crime, and I think you're just going to have a culture that loves lawsuits. I mean, I think I read, forget where it was, to be honest, but that America, 80% of like lawsuits happen in America. And, you know, whether or not that number is hard and fast true, I honestly forget where I read it. I'm thinking I could much more firmly.
Maybe that's because that's just what rich people do, and we are rich.
Yeah,
too.
And I think what a lot of these lead to is they lead to civil lawsuits when the crime can't really be pushed, just because they know, especially with a lot of these guys, they have money as athletes. They're like, well, maybe we can make $200K just by getting them to sign something that says like, we'll stop and we're done. And it's like, well, we still need to get to the bottom of like, was there a crime committed or not? Because if there's a crime committed, like we don't want criminals just to be able to pay people off. And if there wasn't a crime committed, then we don't want innocent people to just have to pay $200K because they were backed into a corner. So justice has to be brought back to bear in America in a lot of fronts.
So these settlements that are happening where an actual crime has been done or a crime hasn't been committed, and people are getting paid off, are you saying that the scripture would say that that's an injustice?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, often these function as settlement. They come down the pipeline through settlements. It's just the pressure, the time commitment, the legal fees start racking up, and you're like, I mean, at this point, it'd be cheaper if I just settle, even though I didn't do anything wrong. And a lot of people maintain that posture the whole time, and usually the other side maintains that they did do it wrong the whole time. And obviously, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. So one day all things will be brought into the light. But the magistrate is a deacon of the Lord to bring justice to a society, which is never going to be flawless, but we don't really. We have some decent basic Christian ideas around innocent until proven guilty, double jeopardy, but when it comes down to penalizing people who commit crimes, that's where we've just softened so much.
This also reminds me of what you said earlier about being above reproach, and why being above reproach is not only God glorifying, but it's a protection for ourselves.
Oh yeah.
To even get accused of that, there's lots of steps along the way that you were not above reproach.
Yep. Always. I mean, being above reproach would keep. I mean, every time I read any of these stories, it's always the same thing where it's like, well, there's a bunch of. I mean, I think to the SDSU punter Matt Ariza, who was drafted by the Bills. He was one of the highest up drafted punters in a very, very long time. And he ended up getting accused of sexual assault, and he ended up the Bills released him, even though he was a phenomenal punter. And I think he just got picked up late last season or after this past Super Bowl or something. So he's back in the NFL because he ended up being cleared of the case. But he wasn't above reproach. He's at a party. I forget the details, but the bottom line is he wasn't above reproach. So while he ended up being proven innocent of like having actually, it was I think a charge of gang rape with a few other guys. He was there at places he shouldn't have been, where it seems as though crimes were being committed by other people, and he had enough association and intimacy with it to get lumped in there. I think he lost his signing bonus, and he missed out at this point, I think, on 2 seasons of being in the NFL, and he had to go through court and all that. Literally, if he was just don't go to parties like that, and guess what? This accusation would have fallen flat.
Yeah, Proverbs 1 just jumps off right at the space of that. Mm-hmm. Is when sinners entice you to cast in your lot to go commit this crime against someone else.
Yep.
They're casting a net for themselves, but it's just it's interesting that Proverbs starts off that way after saying that what this book is for and what the call of wisdom is. Mm-hmm. But the first opposite in the warning is the people you have around you and your peers and them calling you to these different things of how it's going to profit or benefit them, but really it's just the cash for themselves. And so, man, these young men, God He ordered the world by wisdom, and He blessed us with His word. And Proverbs being one that's near and dear to my heart, that would have kept me from a lot of really foolish decisions early on. But
I think Trevor Bauer is another one. Top few finisher for Cy Young on the Dodgers. Yeah, I think he, per his contract, I think he would have been on the Dodgers last year when they won the World Series, but he wasn't because he got charged with having, during fornication with a woman, having strangled her. And I remember his defense was like, she asked me to do that. And you're like, okay, dude, you say no. It's not what do you honestly think that's a good defense? And it ended up coming out into light of she had text messages with other women saying I'm going to take this guy for his money and I'm going to charge him. But it's yeah, dude, but this is what happens when you fornicate. Just get married. I bet your wife, a normal intimate relationship with your wife who you have a mutual benefit from your funds in your life, and her giving yourself to you and you giving yourself to her intimately. When you just fornicate around, this is going to happen. And then especially when your fornication involves violence that you think is well, if they ask me for that, then it's okay. You got trapped.
There's just so many steps to the moral failures that we get honed in. I want to say people get honed in on, well, she said it was okay. Yeah. But let's not forget about the fact that there was a thought and messages and covering up before you even got into the room with this.
Yeah, and objectively, because this is God's world, it's not okay. So this isn't going to work out. You might have done this for women in the past and it might have worked out because God is very slow to anger. But eventually, this was going to reap certain fruits. And honestly, he hasn't been able to get an MLB contract. He's pretty much just kept his stiff arm. He's been playing internationally, but and he's just it's kind of a baby about it. Always complaining, saying I'll play for league minimum. It's hey man, the vengeance that's coming for you. You think you're an innocent man, it's nothing compared to being kept from playing in the MLB in 2025. And that's the sad part about a lot of these cases is not much comes of it for either party. There's usually a lot of muddying of the waters, and
as soon as you take marriage out of the picture, that's where the muddiness is. Immediately. And having been someone in that position, it's very muddy as soon as the deed is done, it's there's a confusion on, well, what now?
Yep. Yeah.
We're both clear-headed and we're somewhere we're not supposed to be. What now?
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's no doubt that all these things are coming up, and it's because it's simply fornication.
Yep.
And it's wrong immediately, and you keep taking a step further, then it becomes darker and darker, and eventually God's patience runs out.
Yep.
On this topic, moving on to the next one, we got Anthony Edwards. Phenomenal basketball player. I enjoy watching him.
As long as he keeps his mouth shut.
You said because he keeps his mouth shut?
As long as he keeps his mouth shut.
As long as he keeps his mouth shut, which does not happen very often at all. But report here is that Anthony Edwards has done such a remarkable deed. He has, I mean, they ought to praise him in the streets for this.
Oh, man.
You know how some people, when they have a breakup in their relationship and there's a kid involved, like these men would just complain over the child support that they have to pay. They're just, how dare you?
Those poor guys.
Ask me of money for my. But you know what Anthony Edwards does? He says, you know what? I'm going to pay it. I'm going to pay it, and I'm going to pay it all up front. Because I'm an honorable guy.
He's a hero.
I am a hero. I get the job done.
Yeah, on and off
Here's
the
all
court.
the money. I can't even. Anthony Edwards is being praised for paying all of his child support up front.
At least requesting to. Yeah, they're like, dude, we don't. Shockingly, they're like, we don't actually usually get this request. We don't even know what to do with it. You're like, oh my.
To the point where people are like, wow, they're just so like, there's young men looking up to him and saying, if I were in that situation, that's a baller move.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my. The amount of young men probably saying like, yeah, that guy's a stud.
So we need to bring this back to what the actual truth is in the light of what God says about this in his word. So it obviously starts with, I mean, we've basically covered the fornication piece. They're already there in a relationship that they ought not to be in.
Yep.
But now there's a kid involved.
Yep.
How does this dynamic change? Let's set the record straight on what an actual response of a man should be, so that our listeners are truly looking at this in the proper light. Yeah,
I mean, allegedly, she claimed he urged her to get an abortion, just to give the full picture of how he's conducted the situation. And then allegedly, he said, quote, this is going to be a fatherless child, end quote. Basically, if she didn't get an abortion. So that's a little bit of a fuller picture as to where Anthony Edwards is at. And he's an example that's unfortunately commonplace at this point. So, yeah, I mean, what should be done is men should commit themselves to lay down their lives for a wife. They should marry a woman and care for her and love her and enjoy her choicest fruits, as Song of Solomon would say, and rejoice in her intimately, and do that in an honoring covenant where both parties are faithful to each other, and that, Lord willing, produces children, that children are a blessing, they're a heritage from the Lord, and they're to be cherished and protected above all. They're as innocent can possibly be. And the reality is, a lot of these guys, especially in a traveling career, they just want to spend their lives for themselves. They just want to fornicate with the next woman, and they're searching for something they're never going to find. And they're growing the pit of discontentment and a wicked view of women, marriage, children, family. You need to have a pretty serious callousness to just kind of look at a woman who's pregnant with your child and say, well, they're going to be fatherless then, or kill them. And, you do a lot of abortion ministry. we know a lot of people out there when we're, when you're ministering to people, if you tell them this is murdering a child, they're going to rip this child limb from limb. A lot of people say, I know. They don't say, oh, I had no idea that's what was really happening. Or they say, yeah, I know I'm going to go kill my child, and that's my right to do it, or whatever it might be. And Anthony Edwards is a product of the same, back to just a lack of justice. Mm-hmm. When murder is praised by the magistrate across both parties pretty much, of course, there's going to be a long list of young men in particular who are going to completely abandon their duties and aim to just kill their child and keep shooting a basketball and using all their money for the most vain of things until they can't, and they'll die miserably, and then suffer a second death, lest God be merciful.
As I'm hearing you say all this, it makes me think of 3 categories. One, we have men, really young boys in the bodies of grown men that are still have completely surrendered to discontentment. They are not satisfied with anything that they have. Mm-hmm. It's never enough. 2, we have heavily severed consciences. And then 3, we just have a society that worships both of those things. That only facilitates more lack of discontentment and more severing of consciences, because we constantly praise what is evil and what is good we call evil. And so this backward society is just like this overwhelming, it's like this cycle that just keeps feeding itself into each other. Mm-hmm. And so for the parents that are listening, it just makes me think about how important it is, while your children are making decisions upon toys and sharing with friends and food and things like that, to be content with those things, because eventually they're going to be discontent with bigger decisions like choosing a wife, staying satisfied with the wife of your youth. And so I would love to hear you speak to the parents a little bit about what it looks like to train your sons. Let's just speak, train sons and daughters, but in contentment, because that's a huge reason as to why many of these heinous sins come up later in their adult life.
Yeah, I think keeping in the context of of our sports podcast, you got to recognize as parents, like, there are very, very few actual role models in professional athletics. Most of these guys, you would not want to leave them alone with your wife, your children, and if you knew 5% of
what they did in the dark.
What they did in the dark.
This is stuff in the light.
Yeah, seriously.
This is in the light.
And allegedly, he has 4 children with different moms. Two are somehow with the same mom, even though they're 7 months apart. So I don't know who's lying there. She might be lying. I don't know what's going on there.
Telling you, he's a hero.
Yeah, it's wild. And they're all like in the last year or two, and he's only like 25 or 26 or something. It's like, what's he gonna do for the next 30 years? Like his trajectory is like, I mean, let's not even factor in how many abortions he might have already had. Like, just at this trajectory with children, he's going to have like a child or 2 every year if he keeps this up, if he doesn't learn. So with different moms, I mean, that's crazy. So, I mean, as parents, I love your point about making sure your children know the word contentment, and they're being disciplined into having a contented heart when it comes to sharing their toys, enjoying the food that's in front of them, a longer drive to go drop off a meal to another family. I mean, there are opportunities to teach contentment all day, every day.
Yeah, there are.
And the reason most parents don't do it is because they're discontent themselves. But our children do need to know that. That's going to be the soil, very essential soil, by which our children will live actually grateful, joyous lives, regardless of circumstances. They'll be able to thrive when things are not going well, and they'll be able to abound when things are going well. And a lot of these athletes, they haven't been trained in contentment at all. They have certainly not been disciplined into it. It's a foreign word to them, and their lives prove it. They just keep buying things. A lot of them end up their careers bankrupt and with pathetically foolish financial decisions, many different children with different moms. And yeah, they thought they were great. And what shows is that, no, you made some great money in a very unique time in history when you can make great money doing that. And instead of receiving it all with contentment and gratitude, you squandered it.
Yeah.
And our children are not exempt from that. They'll all have that same temptation as they age. And as parents, we got to be really on guard against that. It does start pretty much immediately with a child, training them to be content and to even prefer others before themselves. I mean, something we say all the time. And I'll ask my sons, hey, who's going to prefer the other before themselves? And my one son, he just turned 3, but he'll often say me. But what he means is it's mine. I'm not going to prefer others before myself. Yeah. And you see that. And I long for the day when, through continually training him and disciplining him when necessary, that he looks at me and he says, no, I'm going to prefer others before myself. And he knows what he's saying, and he does.
Absolutely. And then it leads us to that second part of it is a seared conscience. And, our 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, they're not at that point where their consciences are really seared unless you're just really out there just not doing anything with them. So that one more so reminds me of our young men that are listening and hearing this, and the fact that when you start to get to a certain age, you're going to be able to get away with things. You don't have a parent with you 24/7 calling out every single sin that you commit.
Yeah.
And so when you get away with these things and you stop confessing, then that's when your conscience becomes seared. And then that sin that you had in the dark that you've been hiding for so long doesn't feel as bad anymore. Then you move on to the next and you move on to the next. And so I imagine for someone like Anthony Edwards and the likes that have been in these similar situations, there's been so much conscience searing probably since they were in their adolescent years when they first learned how to get away with whatever that dark secret sin was that went unconfessed and then now has festered and bloomed into what we see that. And then we have the discontentment added onto it to where we just say this child is going to be fatherless without a bat of an eye, without any kind of heart prick to say something like that. There's so much searing that goes along with that.
Yep.
And so it just makes me think about all the tiny little things that we get away with in our younger years and how that just continues to add up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is a day by day, even hour by hour, either building up of a proper, healthy conscience or deteriorating one. A sports podcast, but my wife and I just watched Adolescence because it's kind of taken the world by storm, and I just thought, oh, interesting topic, premise.
I haven't even heard of that.
It's like breaking records on Netflix. It's a 4-episode British show. The premise is a 13-year-old gets charged with stabbing another girl.
I think I might have seen. Okay.
And that's like right out in the get-go in the first episode. And then it's kind of working like, how do we get here? And this is a real epidemic amongst young men. And yeah, it's worthy of its own whole podcast. I got a lot of opinions on it, but basically the process of the parents throughout it is trying to evaluate how did we get here? That our 13-year-old boy did this. Like, he's guilty. Like, it's not even hidden. I'm not giving anything away. Like, it's right from the get-go. But the show's trying to unpack how did we get here? And why is this becoming a normal thing amongst young boys to be violent, to be overly sexualized, and thinks, have their consciences seared to where certain sexual things are they think permissible, even honorable. And it's just interesting to hear the parents work through it, and you see pretty much the whole movie, the dad and both the parents in a very John Morant type way, because this is modern culture, to just say like, we can't be that introspective about it. Like we can't really dig deep into see like, what do we need to repent of? It's done at this point. And I would say it is one of the most gripping final scenes though of the dad, recognizing, no, I did fail. And it's a powerful scene. Unfortunately, at that point, it's too late. But point is, throughout it, it's only 4 episodes, quick show, and they're just recalling all the different times where it seemed like his conscience was being seared to get to this point, and how they were under this illusion. He's just an innocent 13-year-old boy. But no, the late nights, the things they found on his phone, the things they knew he was looking on the internet, how he would be up all night, school night, getting into fights at school. I mean, all these things. And they realize, you look back at it and you're like, this isn't a shock. It's not a shock. This is actually exactly how they've been trained. And the school image in the show is most vile of how the public school there in the UK is just atrocious. And they are crapping on the public school, but they don't have a solution. Yeah. Right. And that's the product for a lot of these young athletes.
Yeah. This is, I know we're not specifically talking about sports, but the thing about it is, having played at the level of Division I, there's so much about those secret hidden sins that come to light in an athletic context. And so even for someone I love talking sports and going all these things, but this is the stuff that people who are listening to sports and seeing these things come up need to consider, because we more so just mindlessly watch these things happen, and we worship the athleticism. We worship the ability to put points on the board and do all these skillful things, that we so quickly overlook the injustice in our individual lives and in these athletes' individual lives, to where guys can be accused or be convicted of things and just jump right back in like it never happened. And we don't bat an eye.
Yep.
Because as a society, our own consciences are seared. And so that's why I love being able to have podcasts like this, where we don't have to just hurry up and get quickly back into what happened yesterday in last night's score, but it's training them to when you are watching SportsCenter and these topics do come up, see how quickly they just brush over it, where this is a teaching moment. Let's not forget, we were all those kids that fell asleep to SportsCenter day in and day out. Mm-hmm. And imagine if that indoctrination actually had messages like this.
Yeah.
Where we're reminded of how quickly we can find ourselves steeped in a gross situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the point you've made a few times in this podcast of these are the things that were brought to the light. I mean, the things that happen in the darkness. I mean, I would consider the average university campus in America to be the darkest place in America. I think a place like an abortion clinic is just the fruit of a place like the university.
Absolutely.
The university is the root of the cause. And yeah, it's as you've said, it's what a lot of these young athletes have been enculturated into. This is what they know. And because they've been praised for getting buckets or doing whatever they do, they end up thinking they can get away with whatever else it is, or at least the bar just keeps getting minimized as to hey, if you can just avoid raping a girl, if you can just avoid complete Fs, right. Just hand in a little bit of homework and we'll pass you, Right. And I always think to that commercial from the NCAA on most, all throughout March Madness, which says some number, over 99% of these athletes are going to go pro in something else, and just shows a bunch of careers. And none of those ever have husbandry, wifery, mothering, fathering. This is what you idolize. Yeah, I'm not saying that the careers they show on that commercial are necessarily sinful. I'm not saying they're wrong to be a whatever, engineer, pharmacist, these alternatives. But you got to realize when you so devalue, both subtly and not so subtly, the family, and you only consider it a success and you train these children day in and day out that they are only a success if they either make it pro or if they don't, they find some other career and they forsake the family, then don't be surprised when they all have tragic family stories. And that you propagate this real destruction of another generation who doesn't do the most basic, glorious realities of what God has gifted us opportunity to do so, which is be a husband, be a wife, be a father, be a mother, have a productive family, come home joyously, contentedly to a family that you get to grow and blossom. And they would, you could rhetorically say that to a lot of these professors, a lot of these university deans, and they would say, yeah, family first. But that's not how they actually act. That's not how they speak. That's not where they're putting the money into. If there was an NCAA commercial that said these people are going to go pro in something else and it showed a stay-at-home mom.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Like it wouldn't.
There would be. Like
that person would get fired immediately unless it was like two trans dudes and one of them was stay at home.
Come on, we can't. we were look, we can't land the plane like that again. Come on, man.
I mean, that would be the only way the commercial in the NCAA view would be redeemed. It'd be like, yeah, it's got to have, some very weird family that's actually a ticking time bomb to go John Morant on the whole thing.
I'm trying not to end the podcast like we have before, but anything else you want to?
No, love it. Let's do a 1 minute, 2 minute, your opinion on March Madness. End on an easy note.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any?
I think that was one of the most epic Final Fours I've ever watched.
Yeah, I was glad the madness came into it.
Yes, to see. I was watching Houston and Duke, and I'm looking at it. We got 7 points left, and there's like a minute and 20 seconds. Like, comebacks like that are rare in the NBA.
I mean, Duke had it.
Yeah, they had it.
Like, just got to score a bucket in 10 minutes.
That was it, a bucket. But 2 out of bounds plays where they had the whole court.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get it in.
Yeah. And they're a bigger team. Like they have tall guys.
And they were a bigger team. Yeah. I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
And
that rebounding call on the foul shot, that was the first time Houston took the lead, they called Cooper Flag on the foul. Yep. And then, that was a bummer to me because
you hate to see it happen. It was a foul.
But you got to score in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You got to.
In
a final 10 minutes, like you're not going to win if you don't score.
Yeah.
So they honestly should have got blown out at that point. Yeah, the reality is they had such control of the game that it was working out, but yeah, it's pretty wild. Championship.
And then we get to the championship, and man, I was really pulling for Houston. It's like, yes, they were number one, but they were technically they don't have a championship.
It was funny because Houston, in my opinion, coming from the Duke game, got Houstoned as far as like in control the whole game.
Oh my goodness, yeah, exact flip role.
Winning the entire game, and then it really just pulls out who's winning in the last second.
Yeah, the crazy thing about that is that last shot. Oh,
you gotta get a shot off.
I would have loved to see because Sharp is such a good shooter.
Coach, dude, he was like.
He's such a good shooter.
He's like, I can't fathom.
And he's made so many cold-blooded shots throughout the whole tournament.
This is what March Madness is all about. Is that last shot. Like, you just get it up there. Someone had to get it up there.
This is why Kobe was one of my favorite players because at least he's the first one that I heard used to do this, but he would have the clock in his head. Like, he would be counting it down.
Yeah.
in his head. So if it were Kobe, he would have known that he had time to pump fake and he didn't have to shoot immediately.
And I think it's really just an obsession with the 3-ball too.
Yeah.
Because there didn't even seem to be a thought of pump fake, get a 2-pointer.
Yeah.
Everyone, they're getting suffocated, all double teamed. It's like, hey, when everyone's getting double teamed, somebody's open.
Yep.
And the double team was often a complete jump, like I'm in that last play.
Yeah, they're playing aggressive defense.
It's like, hey, just dribble around him, do a little floater. It's tie game. We're going to overtime.
Yeah.
And
it's
just that thought, like, I to a degree, you're emphasizing on the gamble. Like, no, we're going to go for the 3-ball, but that was hard to watch.
Yeah. I mean, especially after what an epic game we were watching. Houston just could not run anything.
Yeah.
It looked like they were content with not moving the ball around. That also comes, I mean, obviously there's things that Florida did on their end to make it difficult to move the ball around.
Yeah.
But that's just, I think it's a huge part of coaching adjustments, and players bought into the adjustments, because towards the end, it just looked like hero ball on Houston's end, and they just were not getting it done. And once they couldn't get stops on their end, that was about it. And yeah, you could definitely see Florida was going to take that game. I mean, Florida was behind, and I was more confident that Florida was going to win that game than like Houston. I was more confident about Florida winning that game being behind than I was about Duke winning in the Final Four before that.
Okay.
So when Florida was behind and I saw the way that they were playing defense, I'm like, it's not looking good.
Yeah.
But when Duke was up, what I was saying is not looking good. I'm like, yeah, Florida's about to take this game. And they did. And that it had a lot to, it just did not look like, it just looked like a fall in the belief in the game plan. Like, there's a plan, trust your coach. I just think it's like, I can't speak for all the players. I don't know exactly what they were thinking, but at least from my side, it looked like coaches, especially at that level, don't have a habit of not having a plan. Like, you don't make it to the national championship as a coach without having a plan, no matter how good your players are. So it just seemed like either Florida just knew exactly how to stop them, or players just weren't bought in.
Yeah, I mean, you imagine him in the whiteboard drawing it up, and if we can get this shot to the one guy who's a sharpshooter, or to Sharp. But I can picture, just played enough basketball growing up, of him saying, yeah, but or you just do a pump fake and you literally watch the marker.
Yeah.
And you get a layup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you wonder, did he draw that? Was that an option? Was he recommending the 3-ball? Did they just ignore that part of the plan? Did he? I don't know. It's,
you never know. It looked like it was designed for Sharp to shoot the 3. So that's where like the player-coach relationship comes in. Like, the coach gets you to a position to win, but then the player also has to make a decision and adjust to what they see.
Yeah. I think the plan, it seemed like, I don't remember his name, but Uzan or something like that, I think it was for him to get a 3 with about 9 or 10 seconds. There could be a rebound. Or if you get suffocated, get it to Sharp, and Sharp's going to do his thing.
Right.
And at the end of the day, he got the ball and didn't even think pump fake. He just thought, I'm going to go up with it.
Yeah.
And that Florida guard just jumped out of the arena to block it. I think he would have blocked it.
He for sure was going to block it. That's why he did what he did.
Yeah.
And so it's easy also for us to say, like, yeah, I should have pump faked it. That's why I go back to, like, if you have the clock in your head, then you know. But again, the coach could have said,
or you absorb the contact.
Yeah.
Because when you're jumping out of the arena like that, it's not that hard as a shooter to lean into that a little bit, get some contact, potentially get 3 foul shots.
Yeah.
Which would have been a pretty epic conclusion. Can you ice those?
I would have been happy about that. I was going for Houston,
but I was not going for Houston.
Why are you hating on Houston?
My brother lives in Florida. I considered going to University of Miami. I'm an East Coast guy.
Okay.
Don't care for Texas.
Okay.
So I was glad to see Florida win it, but you want to see that shot, honestly.
Yeah, you do.
It's March Madness.
Yeah. Well, NBA has a little bit of some March Madness going on with the play-in. Their new playoff structure where the bottom 4 seeds, 7 through 10, play one game to advance into the playoffs.
They've learned.
Those have had some. They've had some pretty classic.
Is that going on right now? I haven't.
No, I think it'll be next
soon, right?
Last games are on Sunday. I think it's going to start like next Wednesday or Thursday. So
cool. We'll have more to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But check us out on YouTube, bro. Check us out on YouTube and Spotify. Give us a like, subscribe, share it with your friends, leave comments, send us messages on questions or things you want us to discuss. We're happy to cover it. But this has been another episode of CSPN.
Thanks for coming.